Well, good morning, Great View friends. Here we are, fifth Sunday in January. That's been a long month. And it feels a bit more like winter, snow and cold. And there was a few of us that were involved on Saturday morning at St. George's Church downtown, sharing breakfast, food with really a whole group of folks that kind of live on the edge of our city and struggle a bit. And for me, it really is a monthly reminder of sort of the graciousness of God for myself and what He's done, but also just a real reminder that there are others around us, kind of in the edges of our lives, that have needs and concerns that sometimes we just glance over. And so I think we need to be reminded of those concerns. Well, I don't know about you, but this COVID lockdown almost feels like we're in prison, or at least under house arrest, as they say. I don't know that I feel it's the government or medical authorities who are imprisoning me. They're doing the best they can with the information that they have available for the most part. And they have a lot more information available to them than I do. But really, it's my desire to not be a spreader of this virus and my concern for others that keeps me essentially under house arrest. And it's the implications of this broken world, as demonstrated by this virus, that keeps me turning to God, asking the question, so how should I respond? Well, God sent Jesus to bring light in a real, tangible form to our dark and broken world. And so, for us to understand what God intends, what light looks like from God's perspective, we have to look at Jesus. Jesus is the clearest picture we have of what God wants to do in our world and amongst His people. We've been reading from the Gospel of Mark, which is kind of like the action movie version of the Gospels. There's always something happening. It's the shortest of the Gospels, just the essential stuff. And you'll remember last week, Jesus called a few fishermen to join Him. And so, scene cut, yes. Now He's going to start talking, explaining things to a larger audience. So we pick up the next episode in Jesus' early ministry here as the light is slowly beginning to be revealed. Remember, we're still in this time of epiphany, the revelation of Jesus, of God to the world through Jesus. So here we are in Mark chapter 1. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue and began to teach. The people were amazed at His teaching, because He taught them as one who had authority, not as the teachers of the law. Well, just then a man in their synagogue who was possessed by an impure spirit cried out, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." "Be quiet," said Jesus sternly. "Come out of him." The impure spirit shook the man violently and came out of him with a shriek. So the people were all so amazed that they asked each other, "What is this? A new teaching? And with authority. He even gives orders to impure spirits, and they obey Him." News about Him spread quickly over the whole region of Galilee. So there's several things to notice in this short story here. Firstly, the people in the synagogue were amazed at His teaching and the authority with which He spoke. At this time in Jewish history, you'll recall, they haven't really had a word from a prophet of God in 400 years. They've got the scriptures of the Old Testament, and they have people who study those scriptures, but as Jesus Himself said, you study and you don't understand what's right there in front of you. So now this Jesus from Nazareth is teaching like he understands what God actually meant. It's not just our scholars debating with one another over their own ideas. And secondly, we have the man who is possessed by an impure spirit. You'll notice this wasn't a crazy man out in the fields with pigs. That's another story. But this was actually a man sitting in the synagogue, listening in on the spiritual teaching like everyone else. His question is, "What do you want with us, Jesus? Have you come to destroy us?" Well, why would he think that? And even though he is possessed by an impure spirit, as it says, he knew exactly who Jesus was. The Messiah, the Christos, the Anointed One, the Holy One sent by God. The third thing we notice here in this short story is that Jesus' response is simple and straightforward. Despite the very rational comments, questions, statements made by this man, Jesus recognized that this man needed to be liberated from an oppressive spirit. So, be quiet. Come out of him. That's exactly what happened. And then finally, it tells us that the people were amazed when they saw the connection between Jesus' teaching, his concern for this man, and his liberating action. He had authority to teach and to heal. This was something the crowd that day at the synagogue thought. They thought this should be shared around as newsworthy, and that's what the text tells us. Maybe good news, maybe bad news, depending on who was doing the talking, but it was news to be shared. So, before I go any further with Jesus, I want to address a couple things in Mark's storytelling here. He emphasizes the people's amazement at the authority of Jesus' teaching. And we have that strange phrase from the possessed man. "Have you come to destroy us?" What's that all about? Where's that coming from? Well, let me take you to our Old Testament reading. Now, this is Moses speaking here near the end of his life as he recalls for the people all that God has done for them. And then he starts talking about the future, and that's where we have this passage here. So here in Deuteronomy 18, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites." Now remember, this is Moses talking. "You, the people, you must listen to him," this one who's going to be raised up. "For this is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, 'Let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see this great fire anymore, or we will die.' A day will come when God will raise up a prophet from among you. You must listen to him." That's what Moses is getting at here. And Moses is making the connection to that time, you remember, when the people rejected God's call for them to be a nation of priests. That was God's desire at Mount Sinai, or Horeb, as Moses says here. A nation of priests when everyone could hear the voice of the Lord for themselves, without mediators. But at Mount Sinai, the people rejected that. They said, "No, you speak with God for us, Moses." Now Moses here is saying, "Okay, I'm just about done being that mediator, but God will send a prophet, and you must listen to him." So let me continue with Moses' words here. "The Lord said to me, 'What they say is good,'" that bit about we don't want to hear directly from you. And so God says to Moses, "I'll raise up for them a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites, and I'll put my words in his mouth. He will tell them everything I command him. I myself will call to account anyone who does not listen to my words that the prophet speaks in my name. But a prophet who presumes to speak in my name anything that I've not commanded, or a prophet who speaks in the name of other gods, is to be put to death. Fine, God says, I'll raise up a prophet. He'll speak exactly what I command, and you better listen. I'm going to call to account anyone who does not listen. And if there's any false prophets, I'm going to put them to death. So, do you recall when John the Baptizer was asked, are you the prophet? Are you the one we're supposed to expect? Well, this is the prophet they were asking about, the one Moses spoke of. And John said, no, there's one who's coming after me. Now, the people in this synagogue are wondering if Jesus is the prophet. He has authority in his teaching, and he has power over demons. Well, I find it interesting that it was the man possessed with an impure spirit who actually got it right. He knew that Jesus was the Holy One sent by God. The other people in the synagogue, they're still wondering, and they wondered for months and months. But he's wondering out loud, so are you going to hold us to account for the words that you're teaching? If we don't listen, are you going to destroy us? What do you want from us, Jesus of Nazareth? That's this man's question. And interestingly, Jesus' answer is, no, I don't want to destroy you. What I want is to set you free. Well, it's hard to deny that we are surrounded by the demonic in our world today. And sometimes it can be present amongst the people of God as well, as we saw in this synagogue setting. Paul talks about principalities and powers at work in the world. The evil one wants to turn our eyes and our ears and our hearts away from God's voice. The evil one doesn't want us listening. Now, in many places in the world, the demonic still manifests itself in the way that we read in this passage. And I've had experience in those settings, as have many of you. But I think the evil one has more subtle ways here in North America. I think the evil one uses things like addictions, racism, distorted sexuality, material consumption, distorted views of love and marriage, glorification of my individual rights, and mental illness. These are all ways that the evil one keeps us from hearing God's voice. And they all stem from our broken spirits and our desire to somehow fill the void there. What have you got to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? That man and his demon knew that change was coming, and they were afraid. It's a question about surrender and willingness to enter into a process of transformation from the inside out. We ask if Jesus has come to destroy us, to destroy our lifestyle, to destroy our image of ourselves, our self-confidence, our self-dependence. We want to hang on to control. Our society wants us all to be self-actualized with ourselves at the root. It's a conversation that goes right back to the garden. Does God really know what he's doing? That's a question the evil one has planted deep within each one of us. And I wonder if that's a question some of us are asking during these days. Does God really know what he's doing? Often this story that we've read this morning here is told in a way that emphasizes Jesus' power encounter over demonic forces. And we want to be on Jesus' side and have that same power as well. We see a lot of that kind of talk amongst Christians these days. Now, when Jesus shared his authority with his disciples later on, you remember they were delighted with it until they met an obstacle that required more than just power and authority. I think Jesus' motivation in using his authority was not for a demonstration of power, but to liberate this man who was struggling with oppressive forces. When Jesus announced his mission statement in Luke 4, he said, "The Spirit has come upon me to proclaim good news, to bring recovery of sight to the blind, and to set the oppressed free." As I said at the beginning here today, we may be feeling imprisoned or at least under house arrest these days. Our gospel story this morning reveals God's glory here in Jesus' authoritative action. But that glory, that authority, that power is the power to liberate, the authority to set the imprisoned, the oppressed free. We're called this week to recognize, to acknowledge the authority and power of Jesus, just as this oppressed man did. We also need to let Jesus set us free from those things that keep us captive to the mindset of this world. We often hear, "There is no God," or "If there is, he doesn't know what he's doing." That's the mindset of this world. Then, as we are set free, that's good news. And we're sent with that good news of freedom to those around us who are still struggling. So this week, is there something that's bothering you? Is there something specific in your life, or is there someone you love who needs the healing, liberating touch of Jesus? Try something different this morning. Just take a moment right now and write that thing or that name of that person down on a piece of paper. And as we enter into worship with our song of response, you'll find it just below here on our webpage, I'd like you to hold that piece of paper there with you. And as you listen to the music, just enter into this scene with Jesus and let Jesus do what needs to be done. Okay, it's a little strange, but you're at home. Humor me today. Holy and awesome God, your Son's authority is found in loving the unlovely and breaking every chain of the oppressed, setting captives free. Heal us of all that keeps us bound up, that we might be all that you have called us to be this week. Amen. The Lord be with you, friends. Take care.